Hey, this is Alex from Graysand. In this video, I'll show you how I made a big muddy mess like this into a recycled paver garden path without spending any money. I'm going to show you how I prepared and installed the timber edging, spread the 2 layers of base and installed the pavers in a herringbone pattern. At the end of this project, we end up with the perfect path for our veggie garden pergola. For this project, I managed to use 100% recycled materials that I already had laying around in my garden. As I wanted to recycle pavers, I first had to do a deal and buy the pavers from a couple chickens in my garden. I like to use old building materials that I've saved from other jobs, but using any type of old recycled building material is always much more work than just using a new product. To begin to make the garden path, I'm first going to install some edging boards to contain the brick pavers. I'm going to use some H4 treated timber that has been treated to survive the test of time in the ground and it won't rot. These boards will contain the pavers and stop them from moving, and it will also be the line that I build my raised garden beds from. Do some hand excavation to dig the soil level down to be the paver thickness plus the sand and road base thickness below the top of the timber edging boards. These timber edging boards are left over from an old project when I built an old path a couple of years ago, so I'm pretty happy that I finally get to reuse them on a new project. The best way to straighten the timber edge boards is to run a string line on the inside position of the boards and then knock in some metal star pickets alongside, secured with a couple of hex head screws to secure the timbers straight. I'm using 100mm bugle screws to connect all the timber boards together. Next, I'll add and compact the road base material. As this is just a rustic garden path, I'm just using some crushed granite mixed with soil that I previously used here on an old garden path. I think I'm going to be able to do this path without buying anything new by just using old materials that I already have here. I'll screed the road base mix to finish 100mm or 4 inches from the top of my edging boards. This will allow me to add 30mm of river sand bedding material. I already have a similar sand product in the kids' sand pit. Next, I'll add some weed matting on top of the road base to stop the weeds. Once I've installed the 2 layers of weed matting, I can then add the river sand and screed it to the correct height. Luckily for me, I'm getting some help with the wheelbarrowing, shoveling the sand onto the path. I'm using a piece of timber the same thickness as the pavers to finish the sand to the correct depth below the pavers edge boards. I screw a couple of pieces of timber together to sit on the edge board to help screed the river sand to the correct depth. I like to use old building materials that I've saved from other jobs, but using any type of old recycled building material is always much more work than just using a new product. All the pavers are covered in mud, so I need to chisel off all the mud and then give them a hose down. In my opinion, the benefits of using old materials are firstly, they can be free. And secondly, if you put in the extra work into the preparation and cleaning, then it can be a much more interesting material than buying new. That's the thing about using any type of recycled material, it always takes much longer to use. In my opinion, the herringbone pavers look much better when they're laid at a 45-degree angle to the centre line of the garden path. So I set a line in the centre of the path, then just began laying the herringbone pattern at a 45-degree angle from the string line. Once I have the first line of pavers laid 45 degrees to the string line, I position the next pavers 90 degrees to the already installed pavers. I can then follow this pattern with full pavers to fill in the rest of the garden path. It's an easy pattern that looks really good with these recycled red pavers. This project has turned into a much bigger project than I'd first imagined, but I'm sure it's going to be worth it when we're eating fresh organic vegetables from the garden. It looks like we have enough of these recycled red pavers in the garden to finish building the garden path. But I will need to make sure I don't break too many pavers in the cutting process, as these red brick pavers can be slightly brittle. Once I've gone through and filled in the path with all the full-size pavers, the next step is to measure and cut the pavers that butt into the edge board. I measure the long point and short point of where the paver will hit the edge board, then mark those 2 lines together. I then transfer the cut line from the top of the paver to the bottom and cut both sides. I found out that if I only cut the one side, I ended up having the paver split and break off in the wrong position. So what I do is cut the top, cut the bottom, then split the paver in half with an old chisel. I then use a grinder to shave it down to fit perfectly into place. Ideally, a brick saw would be best for cutting these pavers, as it uses water to minimise the amount of dust. But due to me just using whatever I have, I'll use a 100mm grinder with a diamond blade. It's a dusty job, so I'll make sure I use safety glasses, a quality dust mask and earmuffs. I'll go around the entire perimeter of the path and cut all the pavers into the edging to lock the path into place. If you've enjoyed or taken any value from this video, please consider subscribing to the channel or liking the video. Once all my pavers are cut into place, I sweep a fine, clean, silica-based jointing sand over the finished dry paving, ensuring all the joints are full. Lucky I can borrow more sand from the kids' sandpit to sweep in for the pavers. I hope this video has helped anyone looking to lay pavers for the first time. Okay, so that's the herringbone garden path finished. I managed to do the entire job and not spend a single dollar. This means we are one step closer to being able to grow fresh vegetables from the garden. It's a pretty easy project that anyone can do, and there's a lot of information online if you do a little bit of research. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.